The film begins in Australia, depicting a dystopian future set in 2053. The narrator reveals that, following the recent war, the crime rate has skyrocketed by over 800%, placing immense strain on the prison system. To address this issue, the government has introduced a rehabilitation program called The Box, which offers prisoners two choices: serve their sentences in solitary confinement or volunteer for immediate execution. Once placed in the box, prisoners receive food and water solely at the discretion of the citizens they've wronged, and any attempts to escape or aid others in escaping are met with severe punishment, often resulting in death. The scene then shifts to a French woman confined within one of these prison boxes, struggling to survive without food or water. Eventually, her suffering becomes too much, and she discovers a hidden razor blade, tragically taking her own life. The narrative moves to a rocky island where several prison boxes are located. A young girl and boy are playing with a rubber ball, which accidentally strikes one of the boxes, awakening prisoner 37,111-3, whose code appears to be a typographical error. As she regains consciousness, she realizes she is bound and panics, banging on the walls of the box and pleading for release. A small screen lights up, showing a woman who informs her that she has been convicted by a jury and sentenced to 7 years of rehabilitation without the possibility of parole. The woman explains that her food and water will be provided only at the discretion of the citizens she has harmed. Overcome with despair, the prisoner breaks down, screaming and insisting on her innocence. The next day, prisoner Lee wakes up and tries to request water by waving her empty food container, but her pleas go unanswered. She begins to inspect the box for a way to escape, but every touch results in an electric shock. As days pass, survival becomes increasingly difficult. Meanwhile, another prisoner, identified as 135,558, searches for an escape route but accidentally triggers an alarm, causing a sharp metal rod to impale her fatally. The following morning, a young woman wakes Lee, offering her a small amount of food and water. Lee tries to explain her innocence, but the woman tells her that her fate will be determined by the citizens. She also informs Lee that she is neither the first nor the last prisoner to be found. After this encounter, Lee endures several more days on the meager rations, but one day, despair overwhelms her, and she attempts to take her own life with a rope, only to release it at the last moment, breaking down in tears over her unfair fate. As time goes on, prisoner Lee comes to terms with her situation and finds ways to distract herself from her grim reality. She spends her days peering through a small hole in the box and sleeping. One day, she manages to reach outside and retrieve the rubber ball, which becomes a source of comfort. After a few weeks, a drone relocates her box to a forest, where she can watch the birds. Next, we are introduced to another prisoner, 11-18102, who has served half of his 5-year sentence. After enduring 2.5 years in confinement, he accepts that his punishment is justified due to his past actions. One morning, a girl in blue approaches Lee, asking what she's doing. When Lee tells her she's serving a 7-year sentence, the girl engages her in conversation and offers a book of Shakespeare's works, but Lee declines, stating that reading is not allowed during rehabilitation. The girl asks Lee to come closer, holds her hands, and recites a few lines from a play, bringing comfort to Lee. She then gives Lee a small bag of food pellets and promises to return. After their interaction, Lee feels a connection she hasn't experienced in a long time. Later, while eating, she discovers a tiny book hidden in the food packet. It's a copy of a Shakespearean play. She uses saved water to clean her wounds, pouring the used water outside. The CCTV captures her wasting drinking water, resulting in her being transported back to the seaside. Sometime later, the same girl visits Lee again, asking why she was imprisoned. Instead of answering directly, Lee asks how citizens decide who to feed among the inmates. The girl explains that she tries to reach as many prisoners as possible, but bad weather often limits her efforts. During their conversation, Lee shares that the girl reminds her of her deceased younger sister. As Lee's confinement continues, she finds solace in the miniature book, which she reads while hiding it from the cameras. Days later, a drone transports her to another location, where a citizen taunts her by eating an apple in front of her. Overwhelmed by hunger, Lee pleads for mercy, but he refuses and proposes a deal. She must allow him to fulfill his desires in exchange for a bite of the apple. Driven by starvation, she reluctantly agrees, and as he takes advantage of her, a patrolling drone spots them and opens fire, killing the man. A stray bullet hits Lee's leg, causing her immense pain, but she manages to reach for the apple, only to find it infested with worms, which makes her vomit. Hi movie buffs, don't forget to hit the subscribe, like, share, and bell button. It's free and it really helps. You'll be notified of each new recap. That night, Lee is awakened by a siren announcing that she has violated prison rules by trading for food. The punishment is 7 days of insomnia, which the voice claims is her first and final warning. The following days become unbearable. Every time she attempts to sleep, loud sirens and flashing lights disturb her. In desperation, she resorts to self-harm, banging her head against the wall. The lack of sleep drives her into hallucinations, where she sees a regal figure that resembles her reflection. After enduring 7 days of sleep deprivation, her punishment finally ends, allowing her to rest. She sleeps for several days straight. One night, she is awakened by fireworks and sees the sky filled with colorful displays. The citizens are celebrating the new year. An amnesty is declared for prisoners in isolation boxes, but political prisoners are excluded, leaving Lee to continue serving her sentence. One day, an elderly woman approaches Lee's box and shares her distressing experience of enduring 15 years in similar confinement, revealing how it shaped her into a resilient yet bitter person. She throws an old rusty razor blade toward Lee before leaving. Soon after, the Shakespeare enthusiast girl visits again, and although Lee initially thinks she is a hallucination, the girl assures her she is real. She offers Lee some water and recites another passage from a play, providing brief comfort amidst her suffering. Months pass, and prisoner Lee's belly grows larger. She is now pregnant with the child of the man who offered her the apple. One night, the girl comes to Lee and expresses her desire to rescue her, but the security system detects the interference, triggering an alarm. Sensing danger, the girl quickly leaves. The next morning, a citizen approaches Lee and asks if she wants mercy. When she affirms, he points to another prison box in the distance, which appears to have been burned down as a form of mercy. Horrified, she refuses this offer, choosing to endure her miserable existence instead. As a few more months pass, Lee goes into labor and endures tremendous pain. After a long struggle, she gives birth inside the box. Holding her baby brings her a fleeting moment of joy that momentarily makes her forget her years of suffering. However, her happiness is short-lived, as the security system detects the presence of an extra life and releases an anesthetic gas, causing her to lose consciousness. When she awakens, her baby is gone, prompting her to cry out in desperation, begging for her child to be returned, but her pleas go unanswered. At one point, Lee's box is struck by sea waves and a rainstorm, causing it to flood. As the water rises, she begins to shiver from the cold. The flooding causes the security system to malfunction, perceiving her presence as a violation. Unbeknownst to the authorities outside, they issued a warning that if the interference was not cleared in seconds, she would be exterminated. As the countdown begins, Lee struggles to stay afloat. When the countdown reaches 0, a patrolling drone arrives to transport her for extermination, but it is struck by lightning, causing the box to plunge into the sea. In the final scene, a group of citizens playing on the coastline notices a prison box washed ashore, containing prisoner Lee. However, they choose to ignore it and walk away, leaving the unconscious prisoner behind. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay safe.